Okay, Shabbat Shalom, Baruch Habayim, everyone. This week we are in Noah, um, Genesis 6, 9 through 11:32. And so this week's parsha covers 5 chapters, and it's a long one. And especially these first ones. I mean, I spent, what was it, last week? 8 to 10 pages just on the first verse. So, and I mean, even really looking at the first word, you can break it up. I mean, I actually have a book that's a midrash on just the word Bereshit, and it's like 500 and some pages. So it is just on that one word, and that's it. But this week we are looking at Noah and the flood. And, it also talks about Noah planting a vineyard and getting drunk and what happened with Ham. And then it goes into the Tower of Babel. So there's a lot to cover. And there are many things that seem to divide people when reading scripture. And I know that this parsha holds one of those things. For those of you who are here and the ones who are online who've been with us for a while, know that in the past, I don't really touch Genesis 6 at all, because this is one of those things. I haven't really dove into it. I haven't really talked about it, because, while some really find it interesting, others find it very divisive, and I don't like division. So that's it. So
Sheila said about unity.
Yeah,
he loves for his brothers and sisters to be in unity.
Whether
yes. They agree or not.
Yeah. Okay, so Genesis 6:1, and I'm just going to read down some verses first. And I'm reading out of the complete just because it's easier for some people to understand. So, in time, when men began to multiply on earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive. They took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. And Adonai said, "My spirit will not live with human beings forever, for they too are flesh." Therefore, their lifespan is to be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterwards, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and bore children to them. These were the ancient heroes, the men of renown. And Adonai saw that the people on earth were very wicked, and that all the imaginings of their hearts were always upon evil only. Adonai regretted that he made humankind on earth, and it grieved his heart. And Adonai said, "I will wipe out humankind on the earth. I'm sorry. I will wipe out humankind whom I've created from the whole earth, and not only human beings, but animals, creeping things, birds in the air, for I regret that I ever made them." But Noach found grace in the sight of Yah, or Adonai. And here's the history of Noach. In his generation, Noach was a man righteous and wholehearted. Noach walked with Elohim. Noach fathered 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the earth was corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God saw that the earth, and yes, it was corrupt for all living beings that had corrupted their ways on the earth. And God said to Noah, "The end of all living beings has come before me, for because of them, the earth is filled with violence, and I will destroy them along with the earth." So, in the word, we have 2 mentions basically of this word Nephilim. And it's, here in Genesis 6 and 4, where it says the Nephilim were on the earth and that day, and the other one's in Numbers. And it's translated in a lot of English versions as giants. So before I start, what do you think about the Nephilim briefly, and why? Anybody want to share? Anybody want to share? No.
They're not going to take the bait.
Okay, nobody's taking the bait. I said, what do you think
You
about
ever heard
and
of,
why? Go ahead.
have you ever heard of the book by Madeline Lingual, A Wrinkle in Time?
Yes.
That's what I kind of reminds me of what you're talking about
Yes,
stuff.
I used to teach that in school, that book too. Yeah, we used it. Mhm,
I think the Nephilim
mhm.
is part of Satan's, because they were not everything, nothing was mentioned about Satan in the flood. It was only about humans and animals. So Satan and the third was not destroyed in that flood. And they can take on any kind of form. They can take on human form, any kind of form.
Okay.
And I think that is where the giants or the Nephilim came from.
Mhm.
And saw the women and wanted to procreate with them. They took on human form.
Okay.
I mean, how they weren't destroyed.
Okay. So that's
Yeah.
what you meant.
So
Well, but it actually said everything on earth, God said he would destroy.
not everything.
He
He
said
said
that.
living human
He
beings,
said,
animals, not,
You can't, the only thing about it, you can't go from an angel to a human being.
well, where was Satan at this time? Was he destroyed? He was on
But he's
earth,
not a human being.
but he was on earth. Him and
But he's still not a human being.
But still, they were
He
still
can't
there.
procreate
They weren't
because
disturbed.
he's not human.
But human in.
That's what I'm saying.
So they weren't
Angels
destroyed.
weren't human.
But they can change their form.
Who
Okay.
does that say that?
Cherubim, Lucifer was the cherubim.
But it don't say anywhere that.
What about the three that came down to Abraham?
But
They
they-
changed their form for
But you
human.
notice it don't say.
Abraham,
It don't say
Ken thinks it's
that an
funny.
angel can change to a human being. Nowhere in the Bible. Nowhere in the Bible it says they change.
But
Okay.
it does say that be aware, because you may not know when you have entertained
Angels.
Yeah.
angels unaware.
Right.
But
So there was not any
it's not a
specific
human being.
type of thing that made you know they were angels,
right.
which most of us contribute that to wings.
Mhm.
But
You
it's
know.
not. Yeah, I mean, cherubim and seraphim.
Yeah.
But all of them can get any kind of form.
Okay, but let's think about this.
Okay,
So
okay,
is it
Lisa, clear
just
this
to
up.
go through? Okay, wait a second, Ken. Just to go through, you think they're angels that are fallen?
I think they're the part of the third of the.
The angels, but they're fallen angels. But you're thinking they're angels mating with women. Okay, mating
Yeah,
with
I
women.
think they took on
But
uniform.
Okay,
There was nobody
I
else
don't
on earth.
think they have reproductive.
okay. So you don't think that there are angels because you don't think they have reproduction.
Right.
Okay.
Uh,
Okay, you don't either.
Not
Okay.
either,
Anybody else?
Rebecca.
Okay, wait a second. Ken, did you want to, were you saying something? Didn't get that.
I said you need to clear this up.
I don't know that I can clear it up. I can give you my thoughts on it and my research and, it. So does anybody else want to share it or I'll go ahead?
Okay, so did,
I'm going to go into,
Okay,
But-
we know that we don't have all the books of the Bible in our Bible.
right.
The Catholic Church, I think, has a Bible that.
They have Apocrypha in their Bible. Yes.
And there's some
No.
There's-
writings in that
Mhm.
No.
that are
Yeah, like
very interesting,
yes.
as to say.
Okay.
well, listen. If everything was destroyed, except Noach and his family, which God called them righteous.
Mhm.
So how did the evil get back on the earth? It had to be Satan coming back.
Okay. I will talk about my
Oh,
beliefs
yeah.
on that. But yeah,
Good one.
yes. Yes. Yes, Ken. Did you cut out?
I said a good one. What
That's-
Joyce said,
That's a good one. Yep. Okay. So there seems to be two main views that these Nephilim are fallen angels and that they're mating with the daughters of men and producing these hybrid beings that are giants. And there are those that see these Nephilim here are men mating with women and that they're not angels. So whatever camp you fall in, it's okay. But I know this has come up, and so I was just gonna, like I said, I've never touched on it, and this is the reason why. And so I was asked to share, why I believe what I believe and the way that I see things, and why, through my research. So just to lay it out there, I don't believe that these are fallen angels mating with women. Okay. And here's my take on this. Now, I will go through, and a lot of the stuff that I share today, I will put in the description box the links to a lot of the research that I have, so that way, if you watch the video and you don't get everything down, if it's a link or something, then I will put it in the link so you can go to the description box. So first, looking at the passage in context, because I think context is important and the key. So I'm going to look at Genesis 6:1. And it says, in the time when men began to multiply on earth and daughters were born to them. Okay. So first we see it's talking about men. And, in this verse, the Hebrew word for begin is hallel, which is to profane. Okay. And so here, men are beginning to profane and desecrate and corrupt and multiply on the earth. Okay. That's the same word that's used back in Genesis 6 and verse 26 that's talking about Seth, when it said, and to Seth was born a son whom he called Enosh. And that's when the people began to call on the name of the Lord. And a lot of people read that as, they're beginning to call on Yah's name. But it's actually Heklel, which is to profane his name. Okay. And so just from my look, is this is suggesting that men were corrupt. They were profaning, and they were profaning the name of Yah. And with each generation, the world becomes more and more corrupt. And the farther and farther away you are from Yah, each successive generation. Even pulling from rabbinic sources, Rashi, who was one of the biggest, go-to rabbis, famous rabbis that Orthodox Judaism, looked to, he wrote on Genesis 4:26, talking about that this was also talking about men profaning the name of Yah, that it wasn't about men calling on Yah's name, that, they're seeing it as that men are getting corrupt. They're profaning his name. And that's the same term that's used in Genesis 6:1. So, in Genesis,
Rashi, you said he was the biggest?
No, I said he's one of the biggest that they go to.
Was he a Nephilim?
No, not in size, Ken. Okay, Ken, you're gonna get not in size, but he's gonna be. You've been hanging around Eddie too much. Okay.
That's a good thing.
So in Genesis 6, I just see it's not that it's not just men multiplying, but it's corrupt men multiplying. And as these corrupt men are multiplying, they're having daughters. Okay, so I haven't.
That's the way I read it.
Okay, wait a second. I'm just looking at. Wait. I'm just looking at that one verse. I haven't gone to the rest. I'm just looking at that one verse.
Before the flood.
This is before the flood. Yeah, this is before the flood. Okay. And so that these corrupt men are multiplying, daughters are born to them. And remember that in the ancient Near East, women were a prominent part of the worship. That is the reason why you don't see women as Levites and priests. Okay. Is because in ancient times, they were temple prostitutes in the other pagan cultures that got the men to, basically mix their worship. Okay, so they were a vital part of that. But it was, I'm not really saying in getting them to convert, but if you're mixing your worship, that's what you're doing. And we see an example of this with Bilam. Because remember, Bilam is a man of a name. He is a man who's well known and renown. He was well known as a prophet for hire.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was hired by King Balak. And Bilam got the Midianites to send their best looking women, all dressed up, to mate with the Israelite men in order to curse and corrupt them. Okay. And Bilam himself, had some relationship with Yah because, but he, we know because he calls on Yah, calls him my God too, but we also know that's the role of the messenger. But he, he does have some kind of relationship because he does go and talk with him.
He's one of those that straddles the line.
Right. And so I believe that history repeats itself and that names and places may change and generations change, but it's the same pattern over and over again. Okay. So notice in Genesis 6:1, I did. Okay. In 6:2, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive and they took wives for themselves. Okay. Whomever they chose. So
Who are the sons?
who are those sons of God? Okay. I'm going to go into that, but give me just a second. I'm going to look at verse 3. And Adonai said, my spirit will not live in human beings forever, for they too are flesh. Therefore, their lifespan is to be 120 years. Okay. So when we look at that verse, right after talking about the sons of God took the daughters of men, it goes in to say that Yah's not going to dwell with man forever. It's emphasizing man. Okay. Genesis 6:4. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days and also afterward when the sons of God came into the daughters of men and they bore children to them. These were the ancient heroes, the men of renown. So the word that it uses here for giants is the word Nephilim, which is plural of the word Nephal. Nephal means to fall. Okay. So Nephilim is not really giant. It is to fall or the fallen ones. Okay. Now
It said,
The ones
in
who
those
fall
days
away.
and also afterward,
yes. Okay.
they were men of renown.
Okay. Wait a second. I'm going to get to the men. I'm going to get to the men of renown. Let me just look at this part right here on this word. This word Nephilim, it's really the fallen ones. It's not really giants. And Genesis 6:4 never really calls them giants. So, but Nephilim is connected with giants because of the description that comes in Numbers 13, where it talks about them going into spying out the land in the word giants. Okay. But one thing that's often missed in verse 4 is the beginning of that verse. The Nephilim were in the earth on those days, and also afterward, when the sons of men went and took the daughters. So the Nephilim were there before they took these daughters of men. So if that word is giants, then that is the giants were there before they took the daughters of men and afterwards. Okay. But from my understanding, the giants were the product of, or the time. So, okay. So if that was my question. So if the Nephilim were the giants, then how were they there before the sons of God were with the daughters of men? So where did this word giants come from? Where did we even get that word? Because in the Hebrew, it's, Nephal, Nephilim. So if you go to the Greek version, okay, so I'm going to go to Genesis 6:4. Okay. And I do not know Greek. I have to rely on my Bible program here to do that. But I do want to show you this. So give me just a second because I'm pulling up my Bible program so that I can send that with you so you can see. Okay. So can you guys see my Bible program?
Yes.
Okay. So, here it is. The giants were in the earth. Okay. That's just the King James Version. So down here, I've got the Septuagint translation in English, which, it does say the word giants here, but I want to look at what it says, not in the English, but I want to look at the Greek. And so here is the Greek word for giants. Okay. And it is actually the word in Greek is gigantes, from where we think about giants, right?
Mhm.
So that is the word gigantes. When I do a search on form, and it pulls it up, I just wanted to pull up this one just to show you. That same word, giants, is used in Isaiah chapter 13, verse 3. Okay. So Isaiah 13 and verse 3, and I will show you here it is in Isaiah. That's that same word, gigantes. I just did a search on it in the Greek. Okay.
13 what?
3. It's that same word. I'm going to go ahead and take this off so that way I can pull up my screen again. Sorry. So when you look at that word,
Say Isaiah, what,
13, Isaiah chapter 13, verse 3.
thank you.
Now, when you look at Isaiah 13 and 3, it doesn't say giants, or at least I don't see it in most English translations. Do y'all see that?
My says
Mighty
Toby.
ones.
Okay, the complete Jewish Bible words that I have ordered my holy ones, summoned my heroes. That's the word gigantes. Eager and bold to execute my anger. Okay. And it's not translated, it's that same exact word that's used in Genesis 6:4 as giants, but here it's used in Isaiah 13 and 3 in the Greek, because that's where the word comes from, is in the Greek. It is not translated as giants. I believe it's because it's referring to Yah sending out his heroes to do this. So if these giants were the seed of fallen angels, why is Yah calling them his set apart ones
Yeah.
and his heroes?
Yeah.
And Isaiah 13 and 3, and I will show you that here. Let me go back and screen share again so that way you can see my screen, because I'm going to show you that verse, but I'm going to also show it to you in the Hebrew. Okay, you guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it starts, Ani zeviti le kedushi gam kedushi, my holy ones. Okay, Ani zaviti, so I am commanding. Okay, like zavah, mitzvah. Okay, le kedushi, my holy ones. Gam, also. Kariti, which is also called Geborai. So Geborai, Gebor, mighty ones. Like he is El Gibor. That's, the mighty one. That's where we get that from. So he is saying here, even in the Hebrew, that I'm calling my holy ones my Gibor, but yet the Septuagint uses that same exact word for giants, but yet it's translated differently. Okay. So y'all follow me so far?
Yeah.
Angelina asked about the Hebrew. Yep, that's what I just did. Okay, the Hebrew. So this is where I wanted to go. So that word giants, well, if you look at that word gigantes, and I didn't pull up there, but if you go to the lexicon form morphology of that word, it actually is coming from the word gigas, which is, when you're looking at what is the definition, you got to go to what that root of that word is. And gigas is related to, or is from the gi, which is related to Greek words Gaia, which means the earth goddess. Okay. So they're using in the Greek that word for earth in the word gigantes. So they're actually, when you're looking at the Greek, where we translate it as giants, it's talking about someone from the earth. Okay. So the Nephilim had children that were called men of renown. In the Hebrew, that term, men of renown, is actually Anashim Shem. Anashim, men, from the word Enosh or Anosh, meaning man, and Shem, name. Okay, they were a man of a name, men of name. And so these children were Anoshim. They were called men. Okay. The plural of Enosh, man. Okay. So, and it's in reference to a mortal man. When you look up Enosh, Enosh is a reference to a mortal man.
Did these stem from the tribe of Dan?
No, this is before the tribes, honey. This is long before the tribes.
But afterwards, they were still.
Okay.
Some from the tribe.
Well, there are some, we see that term giants used in Numbers, but this is where I think people read things literally, and there are things in scripture that are wisdom literature. There are times in ancient times, they wrote different than we write. They used a lot of imagery. They used, like I'm reading a book now about the divine warrior, the Mortal Kombat, and within the ancient Near East culture, and how they use a lot of metaphors. And so when it's talking about we were grasshoppers and they were giants, that they're looking at these well-fortified cities and seeing that these were great men, that they weren't necessarily giants.
Well, at that time too, they thought men that had a long life, 700, 800, 900, they thought they were gods because of the long life they lived. But see, life is starting to shorten.
Yes.
And so they, like us, if we see somebody 800, 900 years old.
Yeah. And we see that, we encounter that with Melchizedek. Yeah.
That is somebody ancient of God, I mean, so they were.
So okay, so looking at
before the flood.
Yeah, well, I'm just right now, I'm just looking before the flood. So this mortal man, that word, they're called men, Anoshim, which is used to describe a mortal man. This is the same word. Go to Genesis 13. Okay, Genesis 13, and I'm going to go to verse 8. Okay. So when we look at this verse, Abraham says to Lot, please, let's not have quarreling between me and you, or between my herdsmen and yours, since we are kinsmen. That word there is talking about we are kinsmen. It is using that same Anoshim, Ahi, and then Anachno. Okay. It is Anashim, showing us that it's mortal men. It's the same term that is used in reference to Abraham and Lot. And this is the term that's used in reference to the men of renown that the sons of women and the sons of God and the daughters of men had. Okay. So if these children that the sons of God and the daughters of men had were hybrid beings, they're calling themselves by the same Hebrew word, Enosh, that is used to describe Abraham. So if it's true that these are hybrid beings, just as crossing a man with a beast is forbidden, then any form of crossing a man with a non-man would also be rejected, because their offspring would be hybrid and not really a man, and therefore rejected by Yah. And so the question comes up, are angels able to procreate? They're spirit beings. They can present as a man, but they're not human. So they can look like, eat, drink, and appear, but they aren't human. So do they have DNA? Can they create life?
Mhm.
Those are all valid questions.
It's true. Satan could create life.
Yes, if that was true, then Satan could create life,
That's one of the things that he would have done.
right? Because if these are fallen angels, these were Satan and his fallen minion that are mating with women.
And also, why would it have stopped?
Yes.
And
Well,
what kind
okay,
of
there's,
form
You know,
did Satan present himself to Yeshua?
yeah. So,
What kind of form was it?
well,
Was it spiritual? Because he was the high ark of God,
Yeah.
and he was cast down.
yeah.
What form was he when he presented himself to Yeshua out in the desert to tempt him?
Yeah. Was it, we don't know.
What was.
Did he appear as a man? Yeah. Did he appear? Yeah.
Yeshua.
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
He still knows everything that God let him. I mean,
Okay. I'm gonna touch on some of those things because I do think there's some differences. So let's look at this. For even in Hebrews, if in Hebrews 1:14, it says that they're spirits. Aren't they all merely spirits who serve, sent out to help? And this is talking about angels or angelic beings. Aren't they all merely spirits who are sent out to serve and to help those whom God will deliver? Yep. So angels can appear as a man. That's what I said. They can appear.
They did to Abraham.
Yes, they can. But they can appear, but does that mean that they have seed and that they can procreate? So for angels, okay, yeah, they can eat.
Drank water.
Mhm.
Okay.
So for angels to mate and have offspring, they would need to create new DNA out of nothing,
Mhm.
thereby creating
I'm thinking of
a unique, but it doesn't matter. It's still an angel. Okay, so thereby creating unique human being. Because if angels are spirit, they're not really material, even though they can appear as material. And, even Yeshua,
That's what I'm saying.
appeared after his resurrection as flesh.
Yeah.
Okay. But do they have the ability to create? Because that's giving them the same power that Yah has. Okay.
Well, I know they say in scripture, in one point, it says, beware, because
Yes.
Satan can come into as a light.
As a light.
Yeshua
Yes.
is a light.
Right.
And he can come to you as a light.
Right.
Think and let you think he's
Right.
God.
Okay. So, like I said, yes, angels appeared to Abraham and they went to Sodom. They appeared and they looked like men. They ate and they drank. But I don't think that they were flesh and blood, just as the men of Sodom see these so-called men and they wanted to lie with them and they didn't. And Angelina says, seems like they can't create on their own. They need God's creation or human beings to do that. Okay. But that's still giving the seed, and the seed has the life in it. The seed has the life in it.
When he created.
Because just the woman has the egg, but still it needs the seed to create life. Okay.
Satan and gave him free reign. He was in.
Okay. I'm on touch on it. So because let's go somewhere else. That phrase, Anashim, men of renown, that Anashim talking about men is used one other time. Or that phrase, Anashim Shem, okay, men of a name, is used another time, one other time, and it's in Numbers chapter 16. So let's go over to Numbers chapter 16. And we got into this discussion earlier before everything started.
Number 16.
I'm going to go to verse 1. Now Korach, the son of Yitzhar, the son of Kahat, the son of Levi, along with Datan and Aviram, the sons of Eliab, and On, the son of Pelet, descendants of Reuben, took men and rebelled against Moshe. Siding with them were 250 men of Israel, leaders of the community, key members of council, men of a reputation. Men of a reputation. In Hebrew, it says Anashim Shem.
Yeah.
These were men of renown.
Yeah.
They were the leaders in the community. Okay. So Korach and the men who sided with him were considered men of reputation, Anashim Shem. Just like Genesis 6 and 4, talking about that these were men. So these men were men of authority or a men of a reputation that basically came and excited a rebellion. They were fallen ones in essence, not fallen from heaven, because they were trying to get others to fall away from Yah and what Yah had established.
Just like Satan.
Right. Okay. And then when you look at that whole context in that whole passage in context in Genesis 6 that I read, the focus is on men, 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 men. We got sons of God, men, men, men. So we're pulling that one term out, sons of God, and making it angels. But the rest of the whole passage is talking about what men are doing. And so that's why I think that what happened in the very beginning, a similar thing happens again and again throughout Scripture. And we'll see it over and over again. Now, that term, sons of God, from where we get, this thing that this Nephilim are fallen angels, the book of Enoch tends to be one of the sources for that. Okay. And I, for one, this is just me, look at the extra biblical writings, either by the rabbis or the Apocrypha, as support for my beliefs, not to fill in the blanks for my beliefs. Okay. So that's why I'll pull from the Talmud, or I'll pull from Maccabees or Enoch or whatever to support, what I believe, and not necessarily to fill in those blanks. And the book of Enoch is actually quoted in the New Testament too. It's actually to prove a point. I think that they are using it to prove their point, which is what I try to do. Because it is, and there's truth in the book of Enoch, but I don't think everything there is correct. From what I've seen from my research, I haven't found any academic scholar that believes that the book of Enoch was written by Enoch, because it references things that were written much later than Enoch's day.
Yeah.
Okay. For example, it references Daniel. It references Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai happened after Enoch's day. Okay. It's what's considered pseudegraphia or pseudepigrapha, however you want to pronounce that, which are writings that are falsely attributed to biblical figures. And I know, I don't know if you're familiar with David Wilbur, but he does a great video explaining about how this pseudegraphia or pseudepigrapha. And so I'll put those links in the description talking about, the book of Enoch.
All
So,
these books, like the book of Enoch, Josephus, and all that, the book of Mormon.
mhm.
Couldn't Satan have had a hand in getting writers to write like our King? Well, I don't have King James, but the King James version, it was written by Shakespeare.
Yeah, how there's different. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was not godly.
Yes.
You know.
So also, another one is, for example, I truly like a lot of Rob Skiba's teachings. However, I do disagree with some of his conclusions, and I went back the other day, on Friday morning actually, and started watching his Archon whatever video. And one of the things, I disagree with some of his conclusions, and one of those is the Nephilim. Rob says he's a researcher, and he bases his work on, the research of others, and I agree. I do the same. Yet I sat down and I was going back through that video, and the sources that he used there was, for his conclusions, like one of the things that led him to draw those conclusions about the Nephilim, he said, was the fact that he could not explain Yeshua and Yah being one, and it makes me wonder, if you understood the concept of the messenger and the vassal, suzerain vassal relationship, would he have still thought the same way? Because that's what led him to draw some of those conclusions.
Because Yeshua was a messenger to Abraham.
Okay, so these sources,
Yeshua,
yeah.
he was a messenger a
yes,
lot of time before. He
okay.
was there to the earth.
Yep, and I'm going to touch on that one too in just a second, Angelina. She was talking about in Second Peter, but one of the things that he uses in there for his sources was, he uses, these extra biblical sources, the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jasher, and all you have to do is do a quick search on the Book of Jasher, Google, and you will find that the Book of Jasher today is actually a literary forgery of the 18th century. He also referenced Steve Quayle's book, the Genesis Giants or something. And so he was documenting that Steve Quayle documents giants throughout history. And when I looked for Steve Quayle's sources, his source was his book. He just wrote the book. He doesn't really give any sources. I don't know if he does. I didn't see any out there So when I look for sources, I only find that he's written a book. I don't see any archaeological or academic sources supporting his findings. So that's, Rob Skiba is a big one as a supporter, for the belief of the fallen angels. So, and we tend to think of the canon or the Bible that Yeshua would have used. Well, we know that it consisted of the Tanakh, the Torah, the Nevi'im, and the Ketuvim. Okay. And which are, the Torah, the prophets, and the writings. Nowhere do we see this as the canon that it's used, the Book of Enoch being part of the canon. Does that mean that it's not valuable? No. I believe there's truth in the Book of Enoch. I believe there's truth in Jasher. And that it can give us valuable information about the culture and the times to support their beliefs. But I believe, that's why the New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, quotes from the book of Jasher and Jubilees. It's to support their beliefs, not to define their beliefs. Okay. So even if we go to Luke chapter 24 and verse 44, Yeshua himself sort of implies as to what was canon in his day. In Luke 24, verse 44, Yeshua said to them, "This is what I meant when I was still with you and told you that everything written about me in the Torah of Moshe, the prophets, and the Psalms had to be fulfilled." He didn't say that it's written in the book of Enoch or the book of Jubilees or Jasher or anything else. It was the Torah, the prophets, and the Ketuvim. 44. So, and he testifies that all of those will testify of him. And so, like I said, I do believe that there are pieces of the book of Enoch that were found at Qumran with the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay. And yes, that is there. There's pieces of it that were found there. There is a sect of Judaism, a sect. Okay, I'm going to say sect here, meaning a group, a small group, that believed that there was this, that fallen angels mated with women. But we have to remember that just because you have a book in your library, that you don't believe everything in it, because books in ancient times were not plentiful. They were housed in a library, just like when I first, I was thinking about like this morning, when I first started this walk back in, really 96 and 1996, and then really got into it in 98. It was before, yes, we had internet, but we had dial-up internet. You didn't have all of these preachers and stuff with websites and stuff out there to find. The only way I sat down with the Strong's Concordance and I would look up a word in Hebrew and then I looked at every single reference, it may take me 2 months just to do one study, because of that. You didn't have all of that information out there now. Now you've got information overload and everybody's stuff
Well,
out there.
everybody's writing everything and you
Yeah,
can't
and you can,
believe nothing until, I mean.
well, you got to look at the sources and who it's from. And so,
I
and
keep
that was,
going back to like this teaching before the flood.
okay.
Everybody walked out.
Okay, well, we're going to get there. I'm still going to talk about that. But when you look at a library, they house these books in a library like the Library of Alexandria. And at Qumran held a great library. Okay. But just as you have books in your library, doesn't mean that you agree with every single word in that book. So, you may pull from that to support. I have a Humash. I have a Art Scroll Tanakh. I have a Midrash on, Bereshit. Do I believe everything they say in that? No.
Well, I even question half of what, I've got about 5 different Bibles and I still question a lot of things because it just don't seem right.
Right.
I mean, you go through it and you can backtrack, but I only have Strong's Concordance. I don't have all that, to go in and look up.
Right.
And it still doesn't sit right with me.
Okay. So another major proponent, and this is one that I really, really like, is Michael Heiser. And he is a big supporter that the Nephilim are fallen angels. He's now passed away. Can't really ask him about this, but I did go onto his website and I will put the links to. But in chapter 25 of his book, Unseen Realm, Michael Heiser states, and here's my quotes, that readers, this is from his blog. He says, this is on his blog that he states this: readers of the Unseen Realm and of my blogs know that I don't think that biblical giants were taller than unusually tall people of modern times between 7 and 10 feet tall.
Right, because
No.
people now.
So this is a man who believes that these are fallen angels mating with it and that these were giants, but in his own words, he says, I don't believe the biblical giants were any taller than 7 to 9 feet tall. The only accurate measurement we get of a giant's body is that of Goliath. And my reasoning is this, is that this is so because, and I'm quoting directly from his site, that idea aligns with the best textual tradition from the Dead Sea Scrolls of Qumran, have him to be about 6 feet 9 inches or 4 cubits in a span, not the 6 cubits in span that the Masoretic text has, that would produce a height of greater than 9 feet. Point B, Og's bed is not a measurement of his body. And as I've written in the Unseen Realm, the numbers for his bed have mythic significance as they match that of Marduk's bed. Okay. Point C, a height of upper 6 feet onto 7 to 8 feet range is significantly taller than the average person of that time period, meaning that someone of that height would indeed have been giant by those standards. Point D, ancient and modern reports of giant skeletons have been demonstrated to certainly have been, or very likely have been, misidentified skeletal remains of dinosaurs or prehistoric mammals. Okay. So, and then he also,
I agree with him on the measuring a bed. Even today, you can't measure a bed and say that's that person.
that person's height. Yeah.
That person's that tall and that
Okay.
line.
So as I've noted in the Unseen Realm,
Do that.
the internet is filled with reports of 2 female 7-foot specimens discovered by archaeologist Jonathan Tubb. This simply is not true. Now, he doesn't write that in his book. He puts that as a footnote on his website. Okay. He
How do you
said,
get away with that?
that's my question, but he's dead now, so you can't ask him. He puts it as a footnote. So for those people that care to go and look at the sources of what he says, he contradicts himself. Okay. And he says, I've related my correspondence, and on his website, which I will put the link so you can go look at it, he actually puts his correspondence with, and I will show you right here because I'm actually put it in my notes so that I could show. Let me show you right here. This is his email that he sent to the guy at the museum. Okay, Jonathan Tubb. So it's from Michael Heiser, sent the 28th of April, 2014 to Jonathan Tubb. And he says, on the subject line, brief question from the University of Pennsylvania graduate. Okay. Dear Professor Hubb, I was reading Jeffrey Tegay's Deuteronomy commentary today, and I came across your name in a footnote. Dr. Tegay mentioned that you have referred to two unusually tall female skeletons excavated at Tel Es Sadea in 1995, but that find has yet to be published. I haven't been able to find a subsequent publication about them. Did you publish anything on these two skeletons? If so, can you direct me to the source? Thank you, Michael Heiser. So he also put the response that he got from this person at the archaeologist at the museum, from the British Museum. So Jonathan Tubb, British Museum, April 29th, 2014, responds to Michael Heiser. Dear Mike, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but I'm afraid the footnote resulted from a misunderstood comment that I made at a lecture at Sadea and I gave at Penn some time ago. We don't, in fact, have any unusually large skeletons from Sadea Cemetery. We are in the last stages of preparing the final report on the graves, and all of the metrics are contained within the volume. With kind regards, Jonathan. Okay, so looking at that, all of that just to point out here that he's saying that the Nephilim may not have been giants of great stature. Okay. And it's interesting that, Michael Heiser promotes in his book that Nephilim are giants, but in the footnotes, he addresses they're not. Okay. So that's interesting. Even talking about, the giant Goliath. There's been much discussion, like I said, the Hebrew text, and he even refers to it in his book, those notes that I read to you on his website, where he says that the Hebrew text says about 6 cubits in a span tall. A cubit was about 18 inches. So that means that Goliath would have been about 9 feet, 9 inches. But many scholars read the Septuagint and the early Hebraic manuscript from the Dead Sea Scrolls, which both say that Goliath was only 4 cubits and a span, so that would have made him about 6 foot 9 inches.
Still tall.
That's still tall, yeah. So that could have been, yeah. So my conclusion is when it's talking about them being giant, it's not necessarily talking about their great stature and height, but their reference to importance and great authority and power and influence. Now, that doesn't mean I don't believe that there are giants, because I do believe that there are people that are extremely tall. Like Eddie was talking about some basketball player earlier no, not Shaquille. Who was that guy? What's that guy?
He's the one that's 7'7".
7'7". Okay.
Bolts?
Well, one of them does know.
Yeah, I don't know his name.
There's a few of them.
But anyway, so I bet he's really tall. I do believe that there are and there's been a lot of talk about these giant bones and these giants that have been found. And there are people, there are people that, I think that could have been between 7 to 9 feet tall or whatever.
Yeah.
But I haven't found, and there's a lot of hoax out there, where they're saying that all of these bones are found, but I haven't found any archaeological review where they have been documented giant bones of humans. Now, some people's like,
I know this was after the internet that I read an article and it had pictures of these giant bone skeletons.
Yeah, and I see a lot of
But then as I researched it, it said those were fake.
Yeah, there's a lot of it that's been hoax. Yeah, there's a lot of hoax out there.
But can they still get do you name some marrow or some?
Well, some of them they found that were actually like animal bones, like, so, and some of them, they found that were that, but I have yet to see like where archaeologists have actually said that these were that. And like I said, there's some that,
Still, I mean,
other links that I will put in here, like there's one with Genesis Park that, they talk about these giants or whatever, and they're showing these huge bones, and they're talking about these people that were, huge and tall, even the basketball player and everything.
I know my daddy was right at
Right.
6'4".
Yeah.
He was,
So I do believe that there are, giant people, but I don't necessarily believe that these are seeds
And
from
people.
a race of people from the mating
Right.
of a fallen angel and a woman. Okay.
Right.
So Michael Heiser also notes this, and this is really interesting because a lot of people have gone off and talked about the seed of the serpent and the seed of the woman. And this is what he says on his website, and I quote, "Consequently, the idea of a seed or offspring extending from the Nahash serpent would have not been literal for the biblical writer. Instead, the notion is metaphorical or spiritual. And this is precisely what we see when the phrase occurs elsewhere in the Bible. The metaphor is perhaps the most clear in the New Testament when Jesus himself referred to the Pharisees as serpents, who in Matthew 23 and 33, who were of their father, the devil. John 8:44, he gives a reference in Revelation 12 and 6. And yet, after he says that on his website, he turns and he says this, quote, "Despite the metaphorical nature of the language in the Eden story, the idea of human beings the idea of divine beings producing human spawn would oppose Yahweh's desires does appear in Genesis 6:1-4. So he just says that is metaphorical, but yet he turns around and says, despite that, the idea of the divine beings producing a human child would oppose that. So again, that confuses me because I'm not sure.
It's contradicted.
He's contradicting himself. So I don't know why. And we can't ask him because he died last year or the year 2024. Yeah.
Well, God is the creator. There's no
Yeah.
way that angels created beings.
Right.
Yeah. So
Because
that's.
God is the creator.
Right.
Yeah, but some are saying, well, look, wait a second. What about the fact that the women could have that? But still, you have to have the seed of the man. So, okay. So now, like I said, I do believe in fallen angels. I do believe in fallen angels. And interestingly, this conversation last night, a comment was made in a WhatsApp group that I'm a part of with Dr. Rivka Adler. And for those you don't know, she is Orthodox Jew. And there was a comment made about demons. And yesterday in the group text, let me get my WhatsApp up here. This came up, and I want to read you. She is an Orthodox Jew. Okay, Orthodox Jew. And this is what she says about demons. Now, she said in her words, it's critically important to be clear that from a Torah perspective, Satan works for Hashem.
he has to go and ask him.
He has to ask him, okay.
Do anything. So
Okay.
he does basically, in a way, work for.
Right. Okay. So that's what she said. Wait a second.
So they never connect.
Okay. Wait a second. While there is, and this is while there is a small sect that sees the sons of God in Genesis 6 in Judaism as being fallen angels, mainstream Jewish text emphasize that, this is her words, that mainstream Jewish texts emphasize that angels lack free will and cannot rebel.
Wait.
Now, wait a minute. Now, this is Orthodox Judaism. I don't necessarily agree with her on this, but this is what she says. Now, Rabbi Tovia Singer, for those of us who've been in it a while, know Rabbi Singer. He is one of the biggest missionaries out there against Jews becoming believers in Yeshua. Okay. He is just totally against that. And Rabbi Tovia Singer, and I will put the link to his video here too, because he discusses mainstream Orthodox views on demons following that, like I said, I'll leave it because he, really looks at the concept of a rebellious Satan or fallen angels, he says, are not part of the core theology within Judaism. It is seen as a later influence. And like I said, I'll link that video so you can watch that if you want to. Now, just to be upfront, I don't agree with Rabbi Singer, but I'm just showing you their viewpoint that I do believe that there are fallen angels. Mainstream Judaism does not believe that there are fallen angels. They believe that these Hasatan are messengers of Yah. Yeah. Are fallen angels and demons the same thing? Okay, we get that in the New Testament. That is nowhere to be found in the Torah or the Tanakh about them in there. So that's why I'm saying that, Orthodox Judaism, they look at the whole idea of Hasatan impacting your life and being fallen as not that they see that Hasatan is a worker of Yah's, who Yah does the bad things to allow men. That's how they look at this. So, I don't agree with that, but that's what they believe. So, but we look at it, and I look at it that I do believe there are fallen angels and that, we see this in the Brit Hadashah, where in Revelation chapter 12, verse 4, it says that a third, its tail swept a third of the stars out of heaven and threw them down to the earth. And it stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that it might devour the child, about being the third of the angels falling. And I do believe that some of these UFO sightings that people are having, are actually fallen angels or demonic spirits, whatever that, because I see these fallen angels or demonic spirits are powers and principalities that are in the air. Okay. And in Ephesians 6:12, it says, for we're not struggling against human beings, but against the rulers, authorities, and cosmic powers governing the darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. I look at it like, a lot of times we are saying those two words, demons and, fallen angels. I believe that the angels are the higher ranking in the heavenly, they were the higher ranking ones, and that those demonic spirits are more like lower, like you just see like over areas. Yeah.
Like spiritual levels,
right.
So and all that. So I can't remember.
Okay. And then another thing that comes up is, I see it, a lot of people say, well, where they fell, and then the reason it's not happening today is that they are bound, and that the farther you get away from the source, that's why the giants don't continue as much, because okay, but wait a minute. So I see it that it is not until the millennium that they are bound, because in Revelation 20, verse 1, it says, next I saw an angel coming down from heaven who had the key to the abyss and a great chain in his hand. He seized the dragon, the ancient serpent, who is the devil and Satan, the adversary, and chained him up for 1,000 years. He threw him into the abyss and locked it and sealed it over so that he could not deceive the nations anymore until the 1,000 years were over. And then after that, he will be set free for a while. So I see it that, you still have those fallen angels, those principalities, those demonic spirits that are in the air, whatever. Okay. But that they don't have the authority. They can't do anything without Yah's permission.
That. We all here believe there's one God, that Yahweh, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the great I am.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in Daniel and Ezekiel, when they see the visions that God's given them, God said they could not get the message through because they were fighting in the air. Then, you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Michael and them couldn't
get through. The message was delayed for 3 weeks. Yes.
They were fighting. So did they go to God and say, can I stop your angels from letting this come through? They have to ask God
Yeah.
now.
Well, wait a second.
Satan
And two,
knows
I
the power.
I see it. Okay, look at
So
is that he has authority over the air of this earth.
Yeah, Satan does.
Yes,
I
that he
know.
has the authority over the air of this
I
earth.
know there's always a battle going on above Jerusalem.
Right.
Always a warfare between good and evil
Mhm.
above. I mean, if you're spiritual, you
Right.
can feel it when you get there to Jerusalem. So that's what. But I want to see how Satan had to be kept alive during the flood.
Okay, so wait a second. He is a spirit being, so he's in the air. The
I know.
air wasn't destroyed. The air wasn't destroyed.
And that's what I'm saying.
He wasn't destroyed, so he wasn't
was alive. Though.
right.
Okay.
Well, he's not alive because he's not.
Talking about all ago.
He's not like a living person.
No, he's spiritual, but
Right.
he has a third of the angels with him.
Okay, yes, but I'm still not saying that he mated with women and had children.
No, I just said not everything died. I mean,
Well, they're not a
earthly
thing because they're not.
humans and
Yeah,
earthly things.
But
died.
there's the difference. They are light beings, not a corporal
But
thing. They can
Satan,
appear.
what? God kept him alive for a reason, because God could just. And he's
Right,
gone.
he could do it.
Listen, the bottom line is,
So he had to be kept
listen, the
alive.
bottom line is, the people on earth that were destroyed, Satan and his angels wasn't destroyed because they were up in the air,
Right,
but they was never human beings that could.
That's what I see. Okay, so keep going. In Matthew chapter 24, we see the reference to the days of Noah and talking about Yeshua's return. Matthew 24, and I'm going to go down to verse 37. For the Son of Man's coming will be just as it was in the days of Noah. Back then, before the flood, people went on eating and drinking, taking wives and becoming wives, right up until the day that Noah entered the ark. And they didn't know what was happening until the flood came and swept them all away. It will be just like that when the Son of Man comes. Then there will be two men in a field, one will be taken and the other left behind. There will be two women grinding the flour at the mill, one will be taken and the other left behind. So stay alert because you don't know on what day your Lord will come. Okay, well, what's interesting to me too is it says that people were eating and drinking and taking wives right up until the day that Noah entered the ark. Well, how is this to be a clue of the days of Noah? Because aren't we still going to be eating and drinking and marrying until Yeshua comes? I mean, that doesn't really seem like a clue. And on one level, it's talking about, I think it's talking about people going about doing their own thing. Okay. But on another level, I think it's about people that are mixing. And that the sons of God or Yah's people are going about and mixing with the things of this world that are common and profane. And that these people of a name or famous people or people with authority or people with a reputation that are always out there in the public, they're trying to get us to do what?
Follow them and
Follow,
dress like them
mix and mingle and do these things.
like them.
Yeah, to mix and mingle the things of Yah. So, and you've got to have the faith, and the faith, doesn't apply that they want you to be like them and to incorporate them. Okay. And that's what the enemy does. He causes us to try to mix. So we get this idea of what's going on in the days of Noah, but what's interesting is that in the midst of all that chaos and corruption, there's Noah. Okay. And Noah's name means rest. And so, it's like Yah's telling us that if we're righteous, even in the midst of a chaotic, corrupt world, then he will give us comfort and rest. And one thing I know, and I think it was Kelly in the ladies group brought up, was about the sons of God, that she was talking about that the sons of God reference in ancient times. And in ancient Near East culture, that term, sons of God, was used back then to refer to kings and rulers. even ancient pharaohs were referred to as that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Think about the word or the term Pharaoh, Ramses, famous Pharaoh. You look at his name. What does Ramses mean? It means son of Ra or born of Ra. He is what? Ra, the God's son. He's the son of God. Okay. So he was referred to. I do have one of the references that I know Rico Cortez used and sent out was the IVP commentary. And so I looked up the IVP commentary for Genesis 6, and this is written by John Walton and Victor Matthews and Mark Chavalis. And I know that Rico's been doing a lot lately with Mark Chavalis, as well as, he refers to John Walton a lot. And this is what they have to say, and I'm quoting from the IVP commentary. 6:2, it says the sons of God, talking about that term. The term sons of God is used elsewhere in the Old Testament to refer to angels. That's true. But the idea that the sonship of God is portrayed corporately for the Israelites and individually for kings. In the ancient Near East, kings were commonly understood as having a filial relationship to their deity and were often considered to have been engendered by that deity. In Genesis 6:2, marrying whom they choose, the practice of marrying any of them that they chose has been interpreted to be by some a reference to polygamy. While it is doubted that polygamy was practiced, is not to be doubted that polygamy was practiced, it is difficult to imagine that this would be worthy of note, since polygamy was an acceptable practice in Israel even in the Old Testament times. It is more likely that this reference is to that of the right of the first night is cited by one of the oppressive practices by the kings of in Gilgamesh, the epic. The king could exercise his right as a representative of the gods to spend a wedding night with any woman who was being given in marriage. This was presumably constructed as a fertility right. If this practice is referred to here, it would offer an explanation as to the nature of the offense. So he goes on to say that they are looking, this term sons of God refers to kings during that time. Pharaoh was considered a son of God. We even see this referenced in scripture. Let's go to Psalms chapter 2. Psalms chapter 2. And Psalms 1 and 2 have been attributed to be written by David. We don't know. It doesn't say at the beginning it was written by David, but everybody that I've seen holds to that these two Psalms were written by David. In Psalms 2, verse 6, it says, I myself have installed my king on Zion, my holy mountain. I will proclaim the decree. Adonai said to me, you are my son. Today I became your father. Who's he talking about?
Sure.
And this one, David, establishing him as king on Mount Zion. And that he's saying that God is calling him son because I'm establishing you as a king, and he is considered a son of God.
Because only God can really call a king into being.
So David is seen as a son of Elohim, a son of God. We also see this in 2 Samuel. Okay, in 2 Samuel chapter 7. Okay, 2 Samuel 7 and 8. Therefore, say this to my servant David. This is what Adonai Zevaot says. I took you from the sheepyards, from following the sheep, to make you chief over my people, over Israel. It's talking about David being chosen as king. I've been with you wherever you went. I've destroyed all of your enemies ahead of you, and I'm making your reputation great, like the reputations of the greatest people on earth. Giving him he's going to be a man of a name. I will assign you a place to my people Israel. I will plant them there so that they can live in their own place without being disturbed by any more. The wicked will no longer oppress them as they did at the beginning, as they did from the time I ordered judges to be over my people Israel. Instead, I will give you rest from all of your enemies. Moreover, Adonai tells you that Adonai will make you a house. When your days come to an end and you sleep with your ancestors, I will establish one of your descendants to succeed you, one of your own flesh and blood, and I will set up his rulership. He will build a house for my name, and I will establish his royal throne there forever. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. So again, it's talking about now Solomon is going to be called a son of Elohim. Okay. And so, that term historically is used to talk about kings in reference to their leaders as well, God appointing them. So they were considered sons of God. Okay. So Noah's name means rest. And, I've talked about this before. If you reverse the letters, it means hin, which is favor. I know a lot of versions translate it as grace, but hin is not unmerited favor. Okay, there is a difference. A lot of people say grace because if you've got somebody's favor, you're in their grace, but it does not mean unmerited favor. Hesed is the Hebrew word for unmerited favor. Okay. Hesed is usually translated in your English Bibles as mercy or loving kindness. So there is a difference there. But, you have that hin. A lot of times English versions will use hin and hesed interchangeably, but they're two different Hebrew words and different meanings. So Abraham found favor in God's eyes. Okay. Not unmerited favor, but favor in God's eyes. Okay. Genesis 6:12. And God saw the earth, and yes, it was corrupt, and all the living beings had corrupted their ways on the earth. And God said to Noah, the end of all living beings has come before me, for because of them, the earth is filled with violence. Hamas. Okay. I will destroy them along with the earth. Make for yourself an ark of gopher wood. You are to make the ark with rooms and cover it with pitch, both outside and inside. Here's how you are to build the length of the ark to be 450 feet with its 70 feet and its height 45 feet. You are to make an opening for the daylight of the ark 18 inches below its roof, put a door on its side and build it with a lower and second and third decks. Then I myself will bring the flood of water over the earth and destroy them from under heaven. Every living thing that breathes, everything on earth will be destroyed. So Yah's telling Noah about this end. He doesn't tell him exactly when it's going to happen yet, but I see it that, within this parsha, the focus is on obedience, and Noah did not just believe that there was going to be a flood. He had to, act on it. He had to act on that. He had to do something. And during, these last days, we think about this is a call to us that we have to be doing stuff for him. We are called to, there's no time to waste. We shouldn't procrastinate. So Noah put his faith in action, and that's what we're to do. That's what James tells us to do. Your faith without your works is dead. But within the story of Noah, there is a chiasm. You remember, where the scriptures lead up, and I will show you in my notes so that way you can see. Let me get to where my share button is. Sorry. Always have to move it. Okay, so I'm going to show you my notes here. Oops, sorry, I minimized it instead of making it big. You guys see it now?
Yes.
Okay, so here's the chiasm. In Genesis 6 and 7, it talks about God's plans to destroy mankind, but in 8 and 21, that goes with he promises to never destroy the living things again. So then we see Noah builds an ark, Noah builds an altar. Noah enters the ark, and Noah leaves the ark, paralleling. And then we've got the 7 days waiting for the flood, the 7 days waiting to send out another dove. 7 days later, the flood came. And then we have at the end of 40 days, the He sent out the dove. It rained 40 days and 40 nights. It goes with 40 days. At the end of 40 days, Noah opened the window. The water prevailed on the earth and the water receded. And then the center of the chiasm is God remembers Noah. Okay?
Well, he always remembered him, but
But that's the chiasm. And that's what it says is God remembers Noah. So did he forget Noah?
No.
he
Yeah.
always
Yeah. So that's, which is really, God didn't really forget. So what does that mean? Mhm. And that's where we think about what does it really mean to be remembered by God? So the Hebrew word here translated as remembered is actually zakar. Okay. And it's not referring to Yah forgetting something like, oh, I forgot to buy ice. Okay. Yet in the ancient world, remembering is about bringing something into existence so that it can realize its creative element rather than destructive element. For example, when a person dies, they're buried. Okay. Nobody remembers who you are. That's it. But in Judaism, there is something called the Yakzri, which is on the day of the person's death, you remember that person. They light a candle and they remember them. Okay. What does that mean? That the remembering of a person on the day that they died, that you are bringing to life, you are Zakar, you are bringing something to life. So the fact that Yah is remembering Noah is a picture of a rebirth.
Mhm.
Okay, a recreation. It's like he's being brought back to life. So when you're remembering your loved one who's died, it's like you're bringing them back to life. Okay, it's like that resurrection. It's that same pattern that's seen throughout scripture. And like I said, Noah had a job to do. He was going to build this ark. He was to make the ark according to the pattern, and the pattern was that of like the tabernacle. Okay, and within that pattern, there's lots of hidden meanings, and it illustrates Yah's salvation. So this ark was to be made of gopher wood, okay? Etz gopher, okay? And if you look at the form meanings of those letters, Etz gopher, it is ayin. Ayin is the eye, the fountain, okay? Zadi for Etz, okay, is Zadi is righteous. And then gopher is the gimel, which is the bridge or the camel, is to lift up. And then we've got the pay, which is the mouth to speak. And then the resh, which is the head or the top or the highest. So in this, what this ark is made of is Etz Gopher. In that word Etz Gopher, you have the picture of the fountain of righteousness is lifting up the highest praise. Okay. And that's what he was doing there. Now, when you think about that ark, it's very similar. Well, the word that is used for ark here is actually teva. Okay, and that's the same word that's used to talk about what Moses would put in when he was a baby, and sit down the river. Okay,
Mhm.
that was in. He was placed in a teva. And so Moses floated on, the waters, and he was saved, just like Noah in the ark and his family. Okay, they were on the waters. And Noah's ark, has another interesting connection because not only is Etz Gopher, the Hebrew word, but numerically it's 443, which is also the phrase Hayayiti, which means I saved alive, and that's used in what book? That's in Numbers. Is it Numbers 22? Let me see if it's Numbers 22. Yeah, Numbers 22, verse 33, which is the very last end of that birth. And I saved alive. Okay. And that's exactly what Yah did. So after making the ark, Noah was going to cover it with pitch, and that word kafar is to cover, which, of course, we talk about that. But the ark is made out of wood. Wood is a picture of man, a tree, his mortality. And so this wood is pitched, it's covered with the same word where we get kafar, which is kippur, Yom Kippur, as a covering, okay, atonement. So this is a picture of this ark being covered, man being covered in his atonement.
I thought it was interesting that during the creation at the Garden of Eden, he didn't tell you the location, but he gave you the river.
Yeah.
Right there. But in this, he's giving you the river, the flood, and he gives you the mountain
Where
that the ark settled.
well, and two, because why?
He told exactly where it was.
Right.
The writer did.
And you think about what that mountain is, because when you look at in ancient times, the mountains are where the king rested, the king's palace was.
Right.
And so in the ancient Near East, all the kings built their homes on a mountain. So what was happening here as the earth was flooded, this ark came to rest on this mountain, showing the here, like you've got Noah being the king, inaugurated or throned as a king here.
The water came down so far for the ark to lodge on this mountaintop, because the water was still going down after that. It kept going down and kept going down, but the ark was already lodged up there. But I thought that was kind of great and odd too, that, okay, we got the creation. It doesn't tell you where it's at, but it does say the rivers. And here you got another flood, it's a big river flood coming out of the earth and out of the sky too. Right. But it tells you where the location is that the ark was.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to keep going here that it was covered.
Can I say one thing? In verse 13, right at the very end, it says, I will destroy them, which I guess is mankind, with the earth. And why did y'all have to destroy the earth? Did the earth sin?
Yes, the land did.
Well, the land had become corrupted.
They had a curse on it.
Yeah, it had been cursed. You think about
like Cain and Abel.
Remember the blood cried out. Cried out. Yeah,
just like it does now. And it's going to be destroyed again by fire.
Yeah,
the earth and heaven.
Yeah, and he says he won't destroy it again by a flood. But we do see a new heavens and a new earth being created. It is going to be destroyed again, but it is going to be by fire the next time.
That's the way you purify.
Yeah, you either purify with water or by fire, and so it's going to be purified by fire.
Well, I guess maybe I'm just saying this. Maybe it's something for a future study, but in Genesis 1:11, it says, "Let the earth bring forth." God said, "Let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit of the tree." But the next verse, it says, and the earth brought forth grass and herb and yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit. That's what in the King James, I don't know, maybe in the Hebrews, but in the King James, it's a little bit different because the one where it says, let the fruit tree bring forth fruit. And then the next verse, and when the earth did this, it said, and the earth brought and caused the tree to yield its fruit. So it's kind of I don't know, maybe it's a little bit play on words, I guess, but I don't know. I mean, when I read this verse I was quoting in Noah, were about the land and the earth was destroyed. I mean, man and earth was destroyed. And it's like God was punishing. I mean, he punished man and the earth. So why did he have to punish the earth? Was it because the earth kind of disobeyed what God was saying?
Yeah,
did the earth disobey what God was saying, and the earth had to be? I don't know. I'm just thinking.
Well, too, when man sins, he's not only impacting himself, but he's actually impacting the earth. The earth, the sin corrupts the earth. And so that's why, when you think about, when all the murder, all the bloodshed that's happened, it has corrupted the earth. And you think about, this, the flood was like a cleansing for it, a purification for it to start over. But man still sinned after that. And you think about
Mhm.
all of the contamination that's happened now. Think about that's why Yah himself cannot come down on this earth, is because there's so much contamination from our sins on this earth.
And
I
two,
guess what I'm kind of thinking, did God give the earth permission to bring forth things? I mean, God created everything, and I believe that. But he said he said told the earth, bring forth the grace or bring forth these things. So the earth almost, and I I don't want to sound like crazy, but it's like the earth had the ability to do things. I don't know. Maybe I'm way off,
Yeah,
and I
I'm
don't
not
mean to
sure
be that.
exactly what you're asking. Like, are
I
you?
know what he's saying. God spoke, like Ken said, because I'd seen that before. He said, God said, let the earth put forth grass, seed producing plants, fruit trees, yielding its own kind of seed bearing fruit on the earth. And that was how it was. God spoke it. But then he waited and gave the earth permission. The earth brought forth grass because the earth needed God's permission to do all of that. You remember, it's always
Mhm.
about the land. And
Yeah,
and
I mean,
then it says the earth brought forth grass, plants. That's what Ken's saying too, I think.
but are you talking about like, do they have like, are they able to produce on their own? Is that what you're getting at? Or I'm not sure. So,
Well, no, the earth can't produce on its own because all
That's
things
what I'm
come from
thinking.
God.
I've never thought about it.
But
mhm.
You got
it's
to
almost
see
like
in the
God
ground
gave
for it
the
to
earth
produce.
permission
Mhm.
or instructed earth to bring forth these things. And I'm not saying all this Mother Earth stuff and
Right.
whatever, all this craziness that can come out of what I'm saying.
Hmm.
I'm just saying it seems like the earth had a power that was a God-given power to bring forth things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. And I do. Yeah. He cursed the,
Because
but it wasn't supposed to, it wasn't time. But
still, he was hungry. It should,
no, I don't see it that way. I see it as that's something else. So
Well,
I see it as that is where sin entered the world, and that's why it was cursed.
but Kim,
It was that true.
and that, I saw that too.
But yeah, I'm not sure.
God
Okay.
spoke it, and then he waited, and then he said, "Let it be."
Yeah. Well, and two, I think, I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what you're asking there. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure. So I'm trying to answer is I'm trying to say that I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but I don't know that,
That's
I
why
think
I
it needs
say
a
maybe
seed.
it might be for a future study.
Yeah. I think there, there has to be a seed there. So, okay, keep going. The length of the ark's 300 cubits. 300 again is also the value of the word kofar, which is also ransom. And so it's tied to, this atonement, this ransom, for this forgiveness. And its width of this ark was 50 cubits, which 50 is not only Jubilee, but 50 is also the value of the word dama, which is blood. And it's also the value of the word lachak, which is for you. And so, and 50, like is tied to the kingdom. So within the dimensions of the ark, not only itself, we've got the length and the width being a picture of, you know, ransom and blood and for you atonement and about the kingdom. Well, the height is 30 cubits, and 30 is the value of vehata, which is like he shall purify. And it's also the value of haka, which was slain. And 30 is also the value of vehaya, which is I will make alive. So within the dimensions of the ark, you've got this picture pointing toward Yeshua, that it's made of gopher wood, and all of the numbers and the numerical values are saying, I was saved alive as a ransom, an atonement, a blood for you, this heir to the kingdom, he's the nun, he is this, the seed, the son that was going to be slain, and he's going to purify and make us alive, which is exactly what Yeshua does. And that 2 in Genesis 6:16, it says, you are to make an opening for daylight in the ark 18 inches below its roof. Put a door in its side and build with it its lower and second and third decks. You know, it's in that pattern of the temple. And notice there's only one door. Remember what Yeshua said in John chapter 10. I'm the door. Yeah. If anyone enters through me, he's going to be saved. But if you come, you know, you can't go in and out another way. And also that word that talks about that there's going to put a window. Okay. That window is translated. It can also be translated as a roof or an opening. It is the word Zohar, which is from the root, you know, Zohar is to illuminate, to light. So if you think about, you know, during those time that they were on the ark, it was dark. The only light they had was coming through that little window, and they didn't really require the light of the sun or, you know, by day or the moon by night, because Yah is, you know, Yeshua is illuminating inside. Mhm.
You think it's a symbol of Yeshua?
I think it's a picture of the temple. And that all of the, you know, the ark itself is, you know, not only a picture of the temple, but it's also a picture of Yeshua, because what is he? He is, you know, weird to be a temple. Yeah, he's the door.
They had to go through that door.
They had to go through that door. Yep, to be safe. And, you know, like I said, that, you know, Zohar, that illuminate, and it's also related to that word Yishar, which is where we get about, oh, sorry, what was that? I've just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, Yishar, the oil that is using to light the menorah. And so there's a link between the two witnesses being, you know, in Zechariah, the picture of the two witnesses being those menorah, those lights, and they're anointed with oil and shining forth the light of Yeshua, which is the light of the world. And we know at the end there's no longer a need for the sun and the moon, because Yeshua is going to be that light. So, you know, here in the ark, you've got that light, that Yitzhar of, you know, being a picture of Yeshua. So, okay. And then Genesis 19, from every living thing, 6 and 19, from every living thing, from each kind of living being, you are to bring 2 into the ark to keep them alive with you. They're to be male and female of each kind, each bird, each livestock, each kind of animal creeping around. 2 are to come to you so that they can be kept alive. Also take from the kinds of food that are to be eaten and collect it for yourself. It is to be food for you and for them. This is what Noach did. He did all that Elohim ordered him to do. And Yah said to Noah, come into the ark, you and your household, for I've seen all that you've done in this generation and are righteous before me. Of every clean animal, you are to take 7 couples. And of the animals that are not clean, 1 couple. Also the birds in the air, take 7 couples, in order to preserve the species throughout the earth. For in 7 days, I will, more days, I will cause it to rain on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights, and I will wipe out every living thing that I've made in the face of the earth. Noah did all that Yah had ordered him to do. So Noah did everything that Yah commanded. Yah sent, you know, to Noah these clean and unclean animals, you know, and we always talked about this. How did he know what was clean or unclean? Because this is before Leviticus 11. You know, so he had to be taught by Adam what was food and what was not food prior to this, you know, because this is long before Mount Sinai. And we know Adam walked in the garden with Yah. So, and you know, most of us have been taught, well, he took 2 animals each. No. When you look at this passage, it clearly tells you he's to bring 7 pairs. That means 14 clean animals of each.
Of every clean animal.
Okay, of every clean animal. And then 2.
And 2 birds too, right?
Okay. Yep. So they came 2 by 2, but there were 7 groups of 2 that were clean, and then there were 2 groups of 2 unclean. Okay. So why are they more clean than unclean animals? Because you can feed the people. But what were the unclean? They were on the ark, yeah.
So you can feed the people that were on the ark.
Mhm.
Okay.
And there were different levels on this ark too, because what's going to be down at the bottom are the unclean animals, because what is the job of the unclean animals?
Pooping, eating
Eating
everything
the
else.
poop.
Eating all the poop. Not to be blunt, but it's to get all that, they're the cleanup crew. They're basically cleaning up the ark.
Noah them was on the very top.
Okay.
They had to be
Yeah.
because animals.
Yeah. So when you think about you're going through that, they were, the unclean ones were down at the bottom. They're cleaning up all the crap, whereas the other ones were being used for food. Now,
God slowed their system down, so they didn't eat as much. They had to, cause.
well, probably. And then, Noah's told to come into the
So
ark.
what were they cleaning up, Lisa? What did you say?
The poop.
The crap?
Hmm. All the poop. Yep.
I want to make sure I heard that right, because
Yep.
that's an excellent word.
I mean, you
Clean
think
up
that's
the
what they
crap.
do. That's what their job is. They weren't food. They were the cleanup crew, the garbage collectors. So no, chickens are clean, so you can have them up there.
The chickens eat their own food.
Yep, but still they're clean because their body processes the stuff differently. Probably, yeah. I pretty much think Noah's and them stayed on third. Okay, so Genesis 7:16.
The hippo's unclean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Okay.
many days was the ark really floating before they could?
I'd have to go back because I didn't look at it this time. So
Count all.
okay, so Genesis 7:16, those that entered in, male and female, from every kind of living being as God had ordered them, and Yah shut them inside. Yah shut the door.
Yeah.
So Noah was not taken away from the trials and tribulations. He lived through them. But because of Yah and his covering, Noah was able to ride above and be protected.
And they were not slack during that time. Him and his children and wives had to be daily doing duty, feeding.
Yeah, they're doing stuff in there. Yeah. And so just as, Yah will protect us during trials and tribulations, but I think the same pattern holds that Yah shut the door and that he closed them in, and that there is a time that Yah's going to shut the door and not let anyone else in. Isaiah 55:6 says, "Seek Yah while he is available. Call on him while he is still nearby."
And it said he's got a spirit, wouldn't always dwell.
That is, yes.
Because if the spirit of God is gone,
Yeah.
You're gone.
And we know it's not necessarily literally meaning 120 years there, because you see later, Sarah lived 123 years. You have people that live more than 120 years. So that's not literally talking about.
Scripture talks about until the time of the Gentiles. I think that was misinterpreted.
Yeah. Okay, so in Jeremiah 11:14 and Zechariah 7:13 also mentions there's a time when people will call and Yah will not listen.
Right.
So, and that should be a warning for us, because, let us be vigilant in order to have oil for our lamps and be like those wise virgins. We know that the water held power over the earth for 150 days for sure, for, there's 5 months. And that's the same amount of time that we see in Revelation 9, which talks about, the angel opening up the abyss, and that the locust came out of the earth. And it was that time period, that was that same amount of time period that these locusts.
Does it say 150 days?
Yes.
That's how long the water's been on it.
Yeah.
And you can imagine the highest mountain back then.
Mhm.
It
Chapter 8, verse 3.
was 22 and a
But that was how long the water was there. But remember that they didn't get out of the ark then,
Right.
because they ended up having to sit up. They ended up having to send out the raven. Well, why the raven?
cause it could move. Anyway,
The raven's gonna eat the dead bodies that are floating in the water, okay?
Yep.
So if the raven's going out and not coming back, the waters are still there, there's still dead bodies, there's still stuff there.
And a dove.
But a dove has to have some place to land. They're not going to
They don't
have
ground.
food. Yeah, they're gonna have to wait. So the dove would come back. And when you look at the word for raven, oref, it is it's the same root that we get evening from, which is a mixture. Okay. So, when you think about that being a picture of the mixture, but the dove is where we, is from it. Dove in Hebrew is Yonah. Okay. Yonah, like the son, Jonah. Okay. And the root of Yonah, do you know what the root of Yonah is? It's really interesting. Yayin.
What?
Yayin.
Yayin?
Wine.
Wine.
Mhm. Do you remember the verse that says he will bring me into his house and take me to his banqueting table?
Song of Solomon?
Huh?
The Song
Um,
of Solomon.
I think it's, I'm not sure. I can't remember. Wait a second. I'll look it up. But it is actually in Hebrew. It doesn't say banqueting table. It says he's going to bring me to his house of wine.
Oh, wow.
Let me see. Where is that? Yeah, Solomon 2:4. You're right. Solomon 2:4. That he, yep, that's where he. It says that he has brought me to his banqueting table or banqueting house, and his manner over me is love. And so when you look at that in Hebrew, it's Hebani El Bayat Yayin, his house of wine. He's going to bring me to his house of wine.
Happy when
So,
you're happy when
well, but you think about that, that's, a picture of, that he's bringing us there. And that's, it's interesting that that's linking with Yonah, I thought. Okay. Okay. So go.
Psalm 2.
No, Song of Solomon 2:4. Okay. So,
Okay, for future study,
Mhm.
if mankind was destroyed and the earth, where did that olive branch come from?
The seeds. Yeah. Well, it wasn't destroyed. It was
That's what the Bible
cleansed.
says. That's what the
Well,
word says.
it's like,
Destroyed.
yeah, but I mean, as far as like getting rid of, I think because he brings the seed up out of the ground too. That the seed, remember,
I'm just asking questions.
yeah, because remember the seed, the earth brought forth the seed in the beginning too, that they come up out of the ground, that he created it with it there.
Yeah.
So if we take it back to the beginning, it was there and it was cleansed, purified, and then there was like a recreation, a new, so when you look at actually Genesis 8 with the story of Noah, it actually parallels what happens in the creation story. Because remember in Genesis 8:1, God remembered Noah and every living thing and livestock. And you're just talking about him, the wind passed over. It says, what was it? Where is it? So God caused a wind to pass over the earth. Well, what happened at the beginning in Genesis 1 and 2? That there was darkness over the Spirit of God hovered over the face of the earth. They parallel each other. It's a recreation that's happening, just like the Ruach did it at the beginning. Here after the ark, that's happening again. And then two, when you think about the flood, where did the waters come from? The flood above and
Above
below.
and below.
It came from above and below. Okay. Well, in Genesis 1:6, what did he do? He separated the waters above and the waters below. It's a parallel picture of creation. Okay.
Is
I'm just wanting you to do a big study, Lisa, on what I've been talking about. And
Yeah.
I know you'll do a good job.
Yeah. You just want
the waters above and the waters.
Mhm.
Could the earth have been enveloped in a atmosphere much like that of a terranium?
You're thinking like the flat earth kind of thing?
No,
No.
not flat.
Well, that's what,
The terranium, it
Yeah.
has the potential to, it had never rained on the earth until Noah's,
yeah,
to the flood. Creationism believes in the
right, yeah,
realm of around the earth
right,
is like it's not frozen, but it's a filament.
like a firmament, yeah,
Yeah, firmament
Okay.
that was around the earth that protected it from the rays of the sun, which was one of the reasons that the humankind was able to grow
right,
and,
Right.
merge and things like this,
right.
So,
Well, I mean, that's a whole nother issue is the whole, because that's basically what flat earth is that it's a flat, but then you have the dome over it.
well, this is not flat. The earth is round.
Well, it's a circle. Yeah, but that's what they're saying. It's a circle, but it's got the dome over it.
Yeah.
So that's flat earth.
Flat earth.
Flat earth.
Flat earth.
Yeah, that's a flat.
Inside the
I don't believe in a
earth,
flat
to
earth.
us, it'd be.
No, it's not. No. I'll have to show you a picture of, but that's
That's a good sprinkler system.
that's something different. Yes. Okay. I'm not going to go there because that's another ball of wax.
I
So,
still wanna know what.
okay. So when you think about this, okay, it's a parallel, a new creation. It's a new start. So when I look at going back to the whole issue of the fallen angels and the Nephilim, that they were beings, men that mated with women. They were corrupt men, mated with these women, these daughters, causing them to become corrupt and corrupt and corrupt. And they had, generations go on. And then we ended up, that's why it says that they were there before and they were there after.
Well, the way I think, I don't care if it was Nephilim or whatever. Satan still enjoyed himself by
But that's correct. But that doesn't mean the whole issue with the Nephilim is that they are sleeping with women and having hybrid children.
And that's not.
That's the whole question. Do you believe that these angels slept with women and had hybrid
No.
children? That is the question. That's what the Nephilim I'm talking, because I do believe in fallen angels. I do believe that they fell and that they did, do that. And one of the verses that it talks about, let's see, in Second Peter, where it talks about in chapter 2, but chapter 2, 2 Peter chapter 2. But among the people, there were also false prophets and false teachers among you. Under false pretenses, they will be introduced destructive heresies, even denying the master who brought them, and thus bring on themselves swift destruction. Many will follow their debaucheries, and because of them, the true way will be maligned. In their greed, they will exploit you with fabricated stories. Their punishment decreed long ago, it is not idle. Their destruction is not asleep. For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, on the contrary, he put them in gloomy dungeons lower than Sheol to be held for judgment. But it doesn't say when he's doing that. He did not spare the ancient world. On the contrary, he preserved Noach, a herald of righteousness, with 7 others that brought the flood upon the world of the ungodly people. Now, I know, some people look at it, well, it could be that, they're already bound and they're seeing, but I see that there are too many things that lead me to believe that these are not angels, because if I look at when you look at the whole passage, all of it's talking about the men and the corruption, and I see the cycle of corruption happening over and over and over again. And it's not about these angels that are mating with women and having children, because to me, that's giving Hasatan and the angels authority over creation. Yes, women do have a egg, but they don't have a seed. That takes a seed, and I don't see the angels being able to create. And I know there's another reference that talks about them not giving in marriage. And, I know it does not say, where is that? That is in, where is it? Matthew 22, verse 30. That it says that for in the resurrection, neither men nor women will marry, rather they will be like the angels in heaven. And a lot of people say, well, see, it doesn't say that they can't, but I think we're reading into it something too. And I'm like, I don't know. For me, looking at the overall picture and I've looked at both sides. I still can't. I think there's so much more to me showing that it is not fallen angels mating with women. Because too, this was a question I thought about was if these were fallen angels that are meeting with women and these children are born, and this is, the other side's viewpoint is that these are hybrid beings and that they are, when their bodies die or whatever, they're disembodied spirits, and those are the demons that are going around. But to me, you are saying that then those beings are never have a choice at salvation.
If you consider them humans, which they did.
If they were considered, because they were considered, they were called men too. So that is something, to me that I question that. And then I think too, you're pulling out a verse and we're attaching a meaning to it. Yes, sons of God does refer to angels because they are his creation, but it is also referring to leaders and rulers in ancient times.
Yeah.
And so we attach one meaning to it, but we don't want to look at the other side either. And so that's, with it there. So, and I don't, I don't know. I think we give Hasatan sometimes too much credit.
That's right.
That
Really shouldn't get any credit because he has to go before God.
Right. Yes.
As we do, and as we will do,
Right.
The answer for ourselves.
And so, is that, I don't know. So, and two, we know they exist after. We know that we see Goliath being a giant too. So, and then I asked the question, well, how in the world? Okay, I'll finish. Okay, so I asked the question too, how did they come up after the flood if they were destroyed in the flood? If they were these beings. And so then the answer was because of the fact that Ham's wife carried the seed. She was one of these on this boat. And so that line was carried down through her.
Where does it say that?
That's coming from the book of Enoch.
Right.
And so too, I don't necessarily hold to the Sethite line because they say, oh, that the sons of Seth, I don't hold to that. I look at it that the sons of Seth can be corrupt as well as anybody else. I mean, that's just like today. We don't say, a group of people as a whole, it's just, you have good people. I mean, okay. I mean, when you look at the Palestinian people today, as a whole, I can give a generalization, but that doesn't mean that every single Palestinian person is that way. Janan Ashab's parents, that I knew, they were wonderful people. They were Israeli Arabs. They don't even consider themselves Palestinians. They were Israeli Arabs, but they, were wonderful people. They were Muslim, but they would tell you up front, I would much rather live in Israel and I will not live in the PA. I have freedom here. I can vote here. I can work here. I have a great job. And they were both doctors. And so they had wonderful positions, but that is, we tend to make that generalization. So
Trying to link up the Nephilim and giants, the giants it's called. And anyway, I had to go through and go through and go. It somehow links back, the Philistines links back to the tribe of Dan and Nimrod. I mean, it goes all the way. It was like tracing. I'm running the trail there.
and
he was a mighty warrior.
Nimrod was a mighty hunter. I think that Nimrod is a title and not necessarily I think it's,
Sargon was actually, no.
I think it's Sargon.
Okay.
When you look at historical documents, I think that because Nimrod means rebellion.
Well, a lot of things are assumptions
Like
too.
Melchizedek.
They're
Yeah,
assumptions.
yeah.
A lot of things you can make an assumption, but it's not proof. You gotta,
Right. Well,
just like the book of, Enoch, like you said, there's things when you read that, it can prove itself up with the word. And there's other things that are just unprovable.
well, see, and that's where I go back to, quote from, Talmud. I'll quote from the book of Enoch. I'll quote from these sources,
Right.
but it is to prove my point. I don't go to it to fill in the pieces.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's what is happening in the Brit Hadashah when you go to, Jude and different books where it's referring and is actually quoting from those sources.
Well, he didn't write his own book.
But that it was actually, they were using it to support their point. It didn't say that, I'm supporting, that every point that they're making is true, but they made the point in here, that's true. Just like, Yeshua is written about in the Quran.
Right.
If you wanted to prove that Yeshua was a prophet, you could go to the Bible to prove that he's a prophet. You can go to Christian writings to prove that he's a prophet. You can go to even Jewish sources believe that he was a prophet. You can go to the Quran to prove he's a prophet. Now, does that mean that I believe that everything in the Quran and Jewish sources are true? No, but I'm using it to prove that point. So.
Lot of questions, but the best thing to do is pray to the one who can answer it the best and to the truth.
Well, and so one of the things I just wrote like a little thing here at the end this morning. And so, whether or not you believe, that the Nephilim are fallen angels mating with women or not, I think corruption and the key is that man's hearts were continually upon evil.
Yeah.
And what we do during these times, what are we to do? We are to continue to build his ark. And what is his ark? It's a picture of his temple and where his presence is to dwell. And that we need to, make sure we're hiding his word in our heart. And we need to be focused on living righteously and being busy about working for his kingdom and being a light and example unto others. And I think part of the problem is, sometimes we get, especially coming from the church background, is we've got this mentality, we're focused on heaven and heaven and heaven, that we forget that we should be working here, that we have things to do here. It is not about it is about getting there, but the difference between Christianity and Judaism is Christianity focuses on just getting there, not how you get there. Judaism is focused on, I want to get there, but how do I get there is what I do now. How I live my life now is going to determine whether I get there.
And that is referenced in the 10 virgins.
And that's a picture in the 10 virgins too. Yeah.
What is the oil in the lamps?
Yeah.
What is that?
What is that a picture of? The oil in the lamps. Do they have enough of the word? Do they have enough of the truth in their hearts?
Yeah. And sometimes we can get so obsessed by focusing on one thing, like Nephilims or what about this or that or the other or Revelation, till that's a distraction from Satan, because he don't want you really focusing on the main point.
Yeah.
God, Yahweh, the great I am.
So.
Focus on it. Study him. Study what he did, what he's doing. don't get off on them rabbit trails of worrying about something that God can answer for us when we get there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, we know Satan is still alive.
Want to be face to face with God.
Yeah, and we're never, I don't think we're gonna,
And the thing about it is, it won't matter.
yeah, it's not gonna matter.
Man,
I
'cause
don't even, I wonder if, we don't even have to ask the question, we're just gonna know it then,
if
so.
you're in heaven, you're a spiritual
Mhm.
light being, like most of us believe. That's not gonna be a thought. I don't think it's even gonna be a thought in your head.
It's just like Job. I mean,
Mhm.
Job had all these questions he was gonna ask God, but when he got in God's presence, what happened?
Yeah.
All of that dissipated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in the Creator's presence.
Right.
There's
Yeah.
nothing else that matters.
Right.
Except.
And I think part of it is,
Oh, my Lord.
it is a tactic of the enemy to distract,
Yeah.
it is, sometimes, and that's why I say, I personally have stayed away from this issue, because you've got people on both sides that are going to be firm believers either way.
Yeah.
And,
And listen, that is
and
okay.
it's okay to do.
What is not okay is people, calling people's name and
Right, yeah.
creates
When they become
division
very
and do all
derogatory.
that. That's,
If you
that's
don't
what's
believe
bad.
this way, then you're a heretic, or
Yeah, that's
you're wrong, or
ridiculous.
whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it may be that a couple of years down the road that I read more and see more and I change. But right now, from the studies that I've seen, this is where, what I think the overall it holds to me better.
Yeah.
Well, as I get older.
Yes.
Genesis 6:17.
Okay.
You about ready?
Well-
It says, well, this is what it reads in mine. Behold,
Mhm.
even I am bringing the flood of the waters. Why did he use that reference? Behold, even I. What is the purpose of him
Repeating
reiterating?
that it's him doing it. That this is, I think it's, it's knowing that the judgment is coming from him. Because in the Hebrew, it's Vayani Hanani. So I see it that he's, he is actually saying, like that Hineni, you look,
You had
because
better look.
I'm the one that's doing this. I'm the one, he is using the destruction to, try to get
That he is the creator.
that he is the creator, and he is trying to bring you into this path. And,
I mean, these people did not repent for 100 years.
and you think about too, even now, I mean, even since then, since the flood happened, we still have corruption, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse.
A lot
And,
worse.
and,
Cause you got a lot more people.
you have a lot more people, but it's, it is not stopped. The flood did not stop the corruption.
Yeah.
No, it did not.
Any
So-
questions?
So,
Okay. My previous comments, I will put it in baseball terms because the World Series started last night.
okay,
I threw a curveball.
okay.
Now you can choose to swing at it and miss, or you can choose to swing at it and hit a home run, or you can choose not to swing at it. You have a choice. So that's my analogy.
Okay. So Ken, I may or may not get there. Okay.
I agree with that.
Okay. So any other, I don't know, questions, or not that I have answers, but comments y'all want to make?
Yeah.
That was very good, Lisa.
I mean, that's just,
I'm amazed at how you remember all of that stuff. And you're just so good about sharing it out, and it just comes and flows. And I'm like going, how does she remember?
no, I gotta have it all written down. And I'm one of those, I don't think fast on my feet. If you give me something, I've got to sit, digest it, pull it apart, look at different things. I don't sit there, which Eddie and other people can think about things like this. I'm not that way. That's why a lot of times I have a hard time I would never debate anybody anyway. I couldn't stand that, but I don't
I
like the
couldn't
controversy.
debate.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could not do that. But I sit there and I'm like, okay, I have to go through stuff. And then that's a lot of times I'll ask Eddie, okay, and I'll go through things with him. And he's like, well, they're good, you're going to say this. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to jot this down because now, because that was like, I went and started talking to him. He's like, well, where does this come from most of the time? And I said, it's coming from the book of Enoch. And he's like, okay, well then, how do you counter the book of Enoch? I was like, okay, so I'll put that in there because how do I counter that? Because I wouldn't have thought to do that, but that's some of the things is I have to sit and just really dig into something and research it. And
You do a
So,
great job, buddy.
well,
I appreciate you very much.
From last Friday, I spent the night with Lisa, Friday night,
Mhm.
Saturday,
Mhm.
Sunday. She and I went back, she studied.
yeah, I studied a
Then
lot.
Monday, when she took me to the hospital to have all those tests, because I was going back and forth, it's gonna take like 4 to 5 hours. Every time I'd come out with a port,
Yeah.
sit down beside her, she was
Studied, yeah.
studying.
So, Yeah. Okay. Well, and I think, did somebody else have something? I think somebody else was going to say something and they may have.
I just want to say I still feel the same. I see the spiritual and the physical, but it was
Right.
good hearing your perspective and the side. And I do think I still, yeah, I still feel exactly the same. But yeah, I just see that there is something different. We see that the Tower of Babel happened right after that. And he talks about how nothing would have been held from them. And he doesn't go and wipe them out. Like there's this horrible moral corruption. They're all just focused on self and all the things that we see. But even up until this day, there hasn't been a need to wipe everything out and start over, as we will see at the coming of the Son of Man when he returns. So I feel like there's something different there, like a spiritual and physical element. And just the adversary is after. He wants to sit where the Most High sits, and he wants to be like the Most High, and just corrupting and tainting things on like a physical and spiritual.
Well, yeah, and I
level.
do believe, I believe that, the whole gene manipulation and things like that today is a plan of his. I agree with that, but I don't necessarily think that was a literal seed of Satan that's actually doing that. I think that is man and technology doing those things. And, and it's interesting because that verse that talks about that man's mind is always upon evil. And that word, Makseba, it's used there for his mind, is actually the same word that is used for modern day Hebrew to talk about a computer.
Yeah.
And so that's, I see that, the simplest. So I do think there is a physical aspect as well as a spiritual, but I just don't see that there's,
I'm
Well,
not, just so you know, I'm
Lisa-
not held to like they had to have, women had to have mated with
Mhm.
angels. That's just how I had understood it. I didn't know there was another idea about that, but I just see this genetic corruption. I mean,
Well, and
what
I truly
happened that caused him to need to start over to preserve things as he created them originally?
It would probably surprise you, I'm sure it would, that, it, in the Hebrew roots,
Mhm.
especially across the world, that it probably surprised most people that most people don't, in that Bill Cloud, Cortez, all those, when you look at all those groups, for some, I mean, I'm not saying they're right or wrong, but most of them don't believe they mated with women. They don't believe, and I didn't even know that myself in the last couple of years. I thought at one time most of the people, most of the church believed that way, but they don't. And I didn't realize that myself until I started studying it myself and doing that. But like I said, we agree to disagree, and we still love each other, and we still go on, because at the bottom line, what is Hasatan? May his name be blotted out forever. What does he want to do in the body? He wants to confuse them and separate. And so if he can do that, so what we have to do is through the Ruach HaKodesh, the Spirit, let the Spirit move within our hearts and our minds. And then we go from there. And Yah knows, everybody under the sound of my voice, I believe, has a heart for Yah. And that's the bottom line. That's what's more important than anything, is having the heart of Yah and loving each other and doing the best we can. And listen, we'll be in heaven one day, and in the New Jerusalem, and we won't have to worry about this, who's right, who's wrong. We just, like I said, it'll just be a good love fest. And so,
Amen. No, it's
We'll-
fascinating. It's
we'll
fun
know
being
what-
able to have cool conversations like this. Out of curiosity, all the teachers you mentioned, do they believe that there was genetic corruption
Yes.
or no?
Oh,
You
yeah,
talking
yeah,
about-
yeah.
You
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about Jeanette for the,
Yeah, I mean,
You talking about-
I know, I really, like with Brad Scott, he really brought out too about the, that when man fell, and then when Adam sinned, that his DNA changed.
you talking about that? I'm talking about,
And that's,
I'm talking about angels mating.
no, she's just talking about like, the,
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
and like with people, when you're mixing the
Yeah.
seeds and the
Yeah.
hybrid seeds
Yeah.
and stuff like that, yes, that does cause genetic changes.
Yeah.
And things that happen genetically. I know, I mean, just from the ones that I know, I mean, I don't know. I know Bill does. And I know Brad does.
Yeah.
Rico, I'm pretty sure he does, but I'm not, I
Okay.
don't know 100%.
Yeah, because that's where I just see
Yeah.
if you add or take away, right, from his commands, from anything, it's no longer as
Right.
he is intended. So I just see
Right.
that spiritual, physical, however it happened, we see
Yeah.
that nothing has been like that since until recently in our days. And it's with our food, it's with our genetic humans, animals, everything's being genetically altered.
Well, it will really surprise you if you start going into ancient history. A lot, even in Egyptology, if you look at ancient Egypt, there were a lot of like manipulation going on there too,
Yeah.
even then.
Okay.
So that is, it was, it's not, I don't want to say something new today, but it is, we're more advanced in many ways, but a lot of people don't realize that the first, like, what do you call it? When somebody dies and they open them up,
Oh, you talking about
autopsies
Yeah.
were done in ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
They actually had medical dictionaries in ancient Egypt because they would cut people open and look at their organs and, weigh certain things and saw how things,
Well, Hasatan,
But-
he gave the the evil ones, he gave them the knowledge to do things. He gave them some powers, just like when Moses and Aaron with the rods, when they threw them down, they could make them make them become
Appears,
snakes. They had that power that Hasatan gave them. And so all that's been through time, that Hasatan could only do so much that y'all would allow him to do.
Yeah. And I do believe that like people today, how do I say, they open themselves up to,
Spirit beings.
spirit beings, whether they're good or bad.
Yeah.
And we
And
know the spirit beings can go into pigs.
Right.
So
And I think that people are influenced certain times by certain things and that they're given, knowledge, just like,
Well, if anybody doesn't
all of us.
think that the demonic powers, they can't come into human beings, then they haven't saw what
Yeah.
I've seen and been where I've seen
Yeah.
and heard them talk and heard them and saw the abilities that they have. Now, they don't have an ability over a man or a woman of God because they can't cross the bloodline, but they can sure scare you a little bit if you're not careful. I've had them hold me down in the bed. as I was praying.
Try to oppress.
Yeah, trying to oppress me. But, it's different, unless you've been through that and see it and understand it, and know it and pray about it, you would never know that. You would never, you think that's, but Satan only has what powers that Yah allows. And he allows Satan, just like he did Nebuchadnezzar and all the other kings, he let them do his bidding to punish Israel at the time. And because Yah says, I create good, but I also create evil. A lot of people don't know. I ask people, I said, do you know that God creates good and evil? He said, no, God don't create evil. I showed him the scripture. And they said, oh, Lord, I didn't know that. But it's a true thing.
Yeah.
And in the bottom line, that's why we just have to humble ourselves and pray and just pray to Yah and be humble as we possibly can. He said, and then you will hear from me. Then you will hear from me.
And I think, like you said, I do believe that there is genetic changes and corruption that have happened. And as man has gotten farther away from Yah and more corrupt in many ways, that because of their mixture within their spiritual life, it is actually played out in the physical where, they're doing splicing with genes and whatever and trying to produce all of this stuff. I mean, you think about it, if you have, a heart valve that needs to be replaced, what do they put in your body? A pig valve. That's what it is.
And now they're going to start putting pig liver in people. So, I mean, all the there's stuff is so, but that's why we have to have a spirit of Yah. We have to be full of the Spirit to understand and discern. See, the one good thing about it, and I've told Lisa this, most women have a better sense of discernment than men. Men have their place that Yah gives us all our places. And I've seen Lisa say something about discernment about a certain thing. And I said, I don't know about that, but it always, every time she would do it, it would come to fruition and it would be true. And women have that discernment. I don't know. It's that, that it's not a power. It's, it's just like some are teachers, some are, that skill that Yah has given them. So now when she says certain stuff, I really look at it, pray about it, and see before I say no or anything like that.
But there are also, times I think because of, like you were saying, that we can also be deceived.
Yeah. If we're not careful.
Because of the fact that, and I think that comes back to that covering.
Right.
That, some women don't have.
Right.
But because of the fact that, I've said certain things to you and you've come back and you're like, yes, but you don't say this. You don't, what I'm saying?
Right.
There have been times that, Eddie's come to me and I was like, okay, I've been going through this. He's like, you don't teach that. You don't do that. And it wasn't anything bad, but it was more or less that it's like,
or it's not the time.
It's not the timing for that. It's not, and he would just, and then it ended up, sometimes you can see things that farther down the road, you're like, oh, I had that wrong. And I was drawing a wrong conclusion on something. And at the time I did not.
Well, at the end of the day, what matters more is that we're born again. And that we're sons and daughters of Zion, and one day we're all going to be together and be happy. So, listen, it's been a good discussion. It's been a good midrash. It's been, and I appreciate everyone on here. Appreciate not because sometimes Lisa and I have been in midrashes that's got pretty nasty. It's got pretty tough. And
I think it's amazing hearing other perspectives. It's good.
That's not the way it should be. And it should be that we can give our perspective and say, we believe what with this about the angel. We believe another way, and Angela and some of her friends believe the other way, and that's okay. And we'll just go on. We'll pray for each other and love each other, because that if we can't forgive each other, be mad at what y'all says, he won't forgive us.
Yeah.
So we just have to go on and just keep loving each other and going on and being the best believer we can be. And that's what it counts to, y'all. So, because Yeshua said, above all others, I want you to be in unity. That's what Yeshua said. I didn't say it. He said, I want you, my people that call on my name, to be in unity. And that's what we need to be. Even that doesn't mean we got to agree on every little cross of the T and the dot of an I, but we need to love each other and be in unity. Amen.
Makes me so happy watching you just cover her this whole time from the beginning. You're just covering her.
Well, I
So
have
good.
the thing about it, she's kind of like, we put it, even though I don't probably hold a candle to Moses, but with Moses and then Aaron, because Moses, I have this thick Southern tongue, as everybody knows. It's very difficult when I try to say the Hebrew words. At least I cannot say them with this thick tongue like Lisa can, like she studies. So biblically, spiritually, I said, I'm going to be your covering as you teach these Torah lessons instead of me, because I get too fast. And you probably listen. When we lived, I'm more of a preacher, speaker, but when we used to live in Israel, when I used to call and try to get something done over the phone, they couldn't understand a word I said.
House, because Eddie could not say the street we lived on, which was.
I had to go out with a phone because I had to order our gas, and I had to spell it for him.
Yeah,
You guys
in
are so
English.
cute.
And it was really fun. So I gave
Lozero.
whatever. And so I had to, I covered her. Somebody asked me, why don't you teach it instead of her? Because they believe only a man should teach, certain people. And I said, well, I'm giving her my covering just like Moses gave Aaron. And I said, because she can bring it forth certain things better than I. Now, if I get a good message with the Holy Ghost going, with a spirit going, some things can be a little different because I don't know half the things I'm saying because the spirit is so heavy on my heart and my mind. It just flows out of me, and that's how I know it's Yah. So just be blessing for everybody, and we're gonna just come
Thank
together
you all.
and we're going to have the blessing on the congregation. So if everybody wants to get ready, we'll get together and we'll have the blessing.
I don't know if I want to say amen or oh me.
Amen, and oh me on top of it. Yivirekaka Yahavavirish Mereha Yair Yahava Penava Ileka Vihuneka Yesaya Pinavileka Yashim Leka Shalom. May Yah bless you and keep you. May Yah make his face to shine on you and show you his favor. May Yah lift up his face towards you and give you peace. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, Sar Shalom. Go in peace. Amen. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Amen. Remember this.
I'm a straight
Stand still and see Yah work in your lives, because he will not let you down when you're a son or daughter of Yah. He loves you. He keeps you. He holds you. And even though we go through just like Peter did on the boat, he see the waves and the wind and everything else, but it didn't harm him. And that's what he said with us in Psalms. It says, not 10,000 to the right, to the left, to the front, the back, or front or top, that he will keep you and he will love you forever. And you remember that. He is Yah. He's not man that he can lie. Amen. We love y'all.
Amen.
Shabbat shalom. Thank y'all. And I will put in all of the links. I just remembered, I do believe that Bill Cloud has one. I will see if I can find that and I will attach it as well as Deanna Dyes. I know that she does something. I'll have to look and see if I can find it. And I'll put all of the links in the description box so that you can go look at all this stuff yourself. So
Thanks so much for all your efforts. Bye,
Okay,
everyone.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
y'all have a great
Shalom,
Shabbat.
y'all.
Yom Tov. Have a good one. Bye, bye, Debbie, Ken, Sue, Angelina, that are all those that are online. Love you guys. Bye.